We talked on the phone together, and we went to events together. That is who I am. What they've said, what the people who worked with me in the Bush White House, the women there. Look at what Sarah Day said in centralmaine.com. Look at the what the law clerks. I have sent more women law clerks to the Supreme Court than any other federal judge in the country.
I only have a few seconds left, and I'll just ask you a direct question. Did you watch Dr. Ford's testimony?
I did not. I planned to. I planned to, but I did not. So I was preparing mine.
He lied. Y'all know he saw. Y'all know he saw. If he hadn't seen it, he would not have came out the way he came out. Yeah, I know I'm not lying, but hey, yeah, I know he saw that shit.
Appreciate that. And she came at great difficulty for her and offered compelling testimony.
Ms. Harris, thank you.
You've come and done the
Thank you
same.
very much, man,
I'm sorry for what's happened to you and your family.
for your preservation of true American democracy.
This is not a good process, but it's all we've got. And I would just urge my colleagues to recognize that
Bravo indeed.
we are 21 very imperfect senators trying to do our best to provide advice and consent. And in the end, there's likely to be as much doubt as certainty going out of this room today. And that as we make decisions going forward, I hope that people will recognize that. And in the rhetoric that we use, and the language that we use going
I
forward,
wish he wasn't now resigning. I ain't gonna lie.
we'll never move beyond that.
Senator Flake, I hope there's a blue wave enough for you to, I hope you don't retire, instead pull an all inspector and become a Democrat.
I'm sorry, Judge, for what you and your family have been through. And I'm sorry for what Dr. Ford and her family have been through. It could have been avoided. Do you believe in God? I do. I'm going to give you a last opportunity.
The Louisiana white boy trying to have Kavanaugh testify. You know what I mean? Do you believe in God? It's for the God and country. I want you to look at me in the eye.
Are Dr. Ford's allegations true?
Are Dr. Ford's allegation
Not
true?
accurate as to be. I have not questioned that she might have been sexually assaulted at some point in her life.
What the hell he gonna think he gonna say?
But as to me,
Yes, they're true, it was me.
Never done this to her or to anyone else. And I've talked to you about what I was doing that summer of 1982, but I'm telling you, I've never.
Alright, shut that shit up. And because Texas also elects its judges, Republicans' 2014 gains in county judicial seats could be in the balance. Like all midterms, it will be a race about voter turnout, more specifically about how many Democrats O'Rourke can turn out. The Democrats have a pretty good group of candidates running statewide. Richard Murray, a political scientist with the University of Houston, said, "A lot depends on O'Rourke." Betty O'Rourke isn't the only Texas Democrat trying to make waves in 2018. Republicans' stronghold on Texas is clear. They control the governor's mansion, both Senate seats, and have safe majorities in both chambers of the state legislature. Of the 36 congressional districts, only 11 are held by Democrats. Wow. That's not right. That's not right. That said, Democrats have major opportunities up and down the ballot. There are 4 competitive House races in Texas. Democrats are looking to unseat Republicans' Representative John Culberson in Texas' 7th Congressional District outside Houston, Representative Will Hurd of Texas 23, a southwest border district, and Representative Pete Sessions in Texas 32, which spans the suburbs of Dallas. They are also eyeing an open seat in Texas' 21st District, which covers North San Antonio.
Judge Brett these allegations that we heard from his
Oh, they just finished.
1962 as defendant. This afternoon, focusing on his drinking, whether he blacked out, whether he truly remembered things, but wrapping up with Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, saying, do you believe in God? And going through each one of the accusers that have come forward with allegations against Judge Kavanaugh.
It started with a bang. He came in there very much ready to push back against these
Because he has seen Dr. Ford's testimony, which he just lied about not seeing. Kamala knew he had seen it, that's why she asked him that to close out. That goes smart. You is kind, you is important, you is smart. Psych, now let me stop. What's up, Viola?
We know that for the Washington Post and others,
I know I read somewhere recently that you wish you hadn't had taken that role or something, because that's all people know you for now or something.
his defense of Kavanaugh and his striking down of this process. We're back with our panel, Britt, Marie, Shannon, and Chris. We have made it through this day. Final thoughts here, Britt. Where things?
Hall of Famer Lane. It is in part stated by Lindsey Graham in the sense of what he said about the process. This process is damaged. It's been subject to this kind of thing for some years now. This is the most egregious example of it. 1992. We all remember.
Okay. That's kind of enough for that. That's kind of enough for that. What time does the football game come on? 8? Alright, that's enough for that. Let me finish reading up some of my boy Teddy real quick. They are also eyeing an open seat in Texas 21st District, which covers North San Antonio. As Vox's Ellen Nielsen wrote, if Democrats can energize the Latino voters and win over some white moderate suburbanites who don't like President Donald Trump, especially women, Texas could prove an essential part of Democrats' path to winning back the House majority this November. There are 3 Republican-held state Senate seats that could be in play. 2 are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and 1 is in the Houston area. Among the 3 districts, Hillary Clinton won in 1. State Senator Don Hoffness's district in the Dallas area, and came within mere points of Trump in the other 2. And for people calling for abolishing the Electoral College is not the problem. Your lack of activity in the electoral process is the problem. Period. Like, yes, the Electoral College is not perfect, but it works. It has worked for a long time. Participation is what's crucial in them. Active participation, yearly participation, regular participation. I just said participation 3 times. I'm tired of saying my so yeah. Do re mi fa sol la ti do. Okay, I digress. Republicans currently hold 21 seats in Texas's 31 seat state Senate, giving them the 3/5 supermajority needed to pass any legislation without Democrats. If Democrats can flip 3 seats, they will win back some veto power in the state. There are also 10 or so competitive state legislative seats that are in play in urban suburban districts. The stakes are high for both Democrats and Republicans here, as Texas's current State House Speaker, Joe Strauss, is not seeking re-election. From a Texas Democrat perspective, your greatest fear is that the next Speaker of the House is way more conservative. Mark Jones, a political scientist with Rice University, said, no matter what, Republicans with 95% representatives in the state house compared to Democrats 55 will keep their majority. Wow. Mm. That is crazy, yo. But it's Texas though, so I can't. Like Van Jones alluded to in Ava DuVernay's documentary 13th, about the 13th Amendment and its loophole that led to America's prison industrial complex. 95% of the district attorneys in this country, if you want to know what a district attorney does, check out the episode of John Oliver last week tonight that he did on district attorneys. 28 minutes of your life. Your Instagram and Snapchat posts and updates and all that can wait. 28 minutes. That's all it takes. District attorneys have so much power and they're voted in. And 95% of them across the United States are white. For a nation that has 14% African Americans and about 17% Latinos, you know. There's power in numbers, yeah. It just has to be consistent. Consistent numbers. Collectively. I digress. I'm sorry. A thought popped in my head, so I wanted to lend voice to it. No matter what, Republicans with 95 representatives in the state house compared to Democrats' 55 will keep their majority. But losing even 5 seats could change how the state speaker race plays out and result in a more moderate state house. There are upwards of 70 state judicial positions that could be competitive. In 2014, when Democratic turnout in the state hit an all-time low, Republicans won two county judicial posts in historically Democratic areas. Those seats could be in the balance this year. Put together, November could mean the difference between a very conservative Texas and perhaps a more moderate but still Republican-controlled Texas. In the long term, 2018 could be a foundational year to rebuild the Democratic Party in Texas, a state with quickly changing demographics that could become increasingly liberal in the years to come. This won't be easy for Democrats, and on one front, the state Senate, Democrats' mission was made even harder this week when Republicans flipped Democrats Carlos Uresti's seat in a special election. Uresti was sentenced to 12 years in prison for 11 felonies, including money laundering and fraud. But Republicans in the state are definitely recognizing the stakes. We're emphasizing the possibility of losses. Dale Easton, the Republican Party chair in Tarrant County, where one of the toss-up state Senate seats is, told the Texas Tribune in early September. The more complacent you become, the more likely it is that you won't win. We definitely have to keep the voters alert of the possibility of losing some seats. We're not going to take anything for granted. That's the Texas Republican Party chair saying that. So, he ain't lie about that. Them white folks gonna come out and vote. Like, that's like one of my biggest fears, yo. I know that I said it already. What I'm doing here might galvanize Trump's base more than it might galvanize the minority base that I'm hoping to galvanize. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, shit is a tall task. But, I know for one thing, when those 32 billionaires are on those football teams in the NFL, in the Negro Fleecing League, hear what I'm suggesting to the 70% or so African American players in the NFL, they're gonna want to shit their pants at the possibility of them brothers actually doing that, like abandoning that shit and opening up businesses and shit. But I digress. O'Rourke is polling well. If he can translate that into turnout, it could be big. Gotta go out and vote, y'all. Gotta go out and vote, y'all. Like, it's free, man. It's free, man. Come on. Oh yeah, hold up. Speaking of voting is free, right? It's some interesting that I took. I took this picture right next to, right in my job somewhere. It says, you know, that little poster that if you got a job where your job have that they get from like the the states, your respective states Department of Labor or some shit, labor and licensing, that tells the federal minimum wage, your rights, employee rights, your employer's rights, and all that stuff. Is this a little piece at the bottom right corner that says time off to vote? It says polls are open from 7. This is based in California, so it says polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. each election day. If you're scheduled to be at work during that time, California law allows you to take up to 2 hours off to vote without losing any pay. That's crucial, without losing any pay. You may take as much time as you need to vote, but only 2 hours of that time will be paid. That's the only thing. I get it. You're gonna lose if you got a job, and if you black in America, you got a job. Bravo to start with. I could say that, especially in California, because a lot of people ain't got no jobs and ain't trying to get no jobs, yo. I ain't trying to say that, but I'm just speaking on some truths, yo. Please don't hate on me for that. I'm just speaking on some truths, yo. You know what I mean? So I work at a place where it's like 99.8% of the people I work with are Latinos. And of that 99.8% of them, 97.6% don't speak any English at all. The 2 or 3 that speak English, like I literally feel like I'm going to work down south of the border every time I go there for 8 hours a day. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, it's cool. I do my job. I'm good. Like, hey, so anybody who's ever worked with me know I go and I do my job. It's cool. But it's this feeling like it's not right. You know what I mean? Like, and I get it. And most of those jobs been there before the Latino influx and all that, and I get it. But I say that to say that even if you have a job, man, I know it's rough to want to take that one day off on that Tuesday. Club going down. It's like, no, let me stop. On that Tuesday to go vote, because election days are most likely almost Tuesdays. Some places have it on Saturdays and all, like primaries on Saturdays. But on that Tuesday, you want to take off. Yeah, that 2 hours you're going to get paid for, but the rest of it, you might not be in a position to afford to take that much time off in that one day to stand in line all day to vote, which to you might not be important, but it is important because it might mean the difference between your paycheck being a little fatter based on tax laws being passed by the person you're voting for or not voting for. You know what I mean? So, like, in the long run, I'm talking long term here. That's why I say read 30 minutes a day and vote every year for the next 50 years to start. I'm not talking about doing something this year and then 2019 be done with it. If 30 out of 50 million African Americans in the United States today are eligible to vote and go out and vote 39, 40 days from now, if that 30 million go out and vote 39, 40 days from now, right? I get that, it's admirable. And next year you don't, and the year after you don't, what you did this year don't mean shit. Real talk. It's a consistency tool. You know what I mean? Or if you go vote this year and the year after, let's say the same number of people go out and vote this year. 2018, fine. 19, fine. 20, fine. We still motivated. We into 21, fine. 22, fine. We still motivated about it. But then we start for 23, 24, 25. Everything we did from 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23 and so on was an exercise in futility. Because those 1 or 2 years that we're going to miss in that span, yes, it's easier said than done, but it's those mundane little things that matter. 9 years ago, you had something stupid and dumb going on at this time 9 years ago known as the Tea Party movement, small government, guns, Second Amendment, this and that. Oh, we want to take back our right. That was bullshit. That was bullshit. I called bullshit on that then, I'm calling bullshit on it right now. You ain't hear them talking about, oh, no, not no damn Tea Party movement right now there. That shit done flamed out. But, you know. Oh, thank you, Washington Post. Hey, as I'm saying this right now, like, as you know, it is right now about maybe, what time is it? But yeah, you know, the importance of it. The hold, hold on, yeah. As any writer or content provider in this age of Trump knows right now, so much happens so quick that you know what I mean. You know. This is awesome, yo. So I can't say he wrote this because I don't think he can articulate himself down well in his mind. But he approved this statement to be posted on his Twitter. He just said, Judge Kavanaugh showed America exactly why I nominated him. His testimony was powerful, honest, and riveting. Democrats search and destroy. Democrats search and destroy strategy. Yo, he had the right punctuation mark on it. I got confused. He had the apostrophe after the end of Democrats at the end of the S, you know what I mean? Instead of yeah, okay. Democrats search and destroy strategy is disgraceful, and this process has been a total sham and effort to delay, obstruct, and resist. The Senate must vote. That's why I said somebody told him. Somebody wrote this and he approved it. He approved it to, yeah, you know what I mean, to actually put out there. He did not come up with those thoughts himself. I can guarantee you that because that's unlikely. But let me leave my boy Trump alone, you know what I mean? I don't want him to get mad to the point where he really want to push some button he ain't supposed to be pushing. Your time off for voting can be only at the beginning or end of your regular work shift, unless you make another arrangement with your employer. If you think you will need time off to vote, you must notify your employer at least 2 working days prior to the election. So yeah, that is it. Back to where was that? O'Rourke is polling well. If he can translate that into turnout, it could be big. For a Democrat, O'Rourke is doing really well in Texas. He has consistently polled in the single digits. On Friday, Cook Political Report changed the race's partisan rating from Lynn's Republican to a toss-up. Optimistic Republicans in the state like to say O'Rourke will likely end up like Wendy Davis, a Democrat who made a formidable statewide challenge for the governorship in 2014, only to lose to Greg Abbott by a 20-point margin. The white lash of Obama was in the midst then, so I'm not surprised Wendy Davis lost. So I remember who she is. I remember her really well. There is a well-established phenomenon that early polling in Texas can underestimate a Republican voting advantage anywhere from 4 to 16 points. Hansen points out that O'Rourke's favorability in June 2018 was remarkably similar to Davis's. According to University of Texas Texas Tribune polling, O'Rourke was viewed favorably by 37% of registered voters, whereas Davis was viewed favorably by 34% in June 2014. But there is a key difference when the numbers are broken down by party. Republicans in 2014 viewed Davis much more unfavorably than they do O'Rourke. If O'Rourke is going to win in Texas, he will need to win over Republican-leaning independent voters, John McCain-type Republicans in Texas, part of the 55% good-hearted white Americans that I talk about. You know, white American men named Richard rather than Dick, you know, or who go by Richard rather than Dick, you know. But I'm sorry. Back to the article real quick. If O'Rourke is going to win in Texas, he will need to win over Republican-leaning independent voters. But even if he can't flip enough to actually overcome Cruz's advantage, enthusiasm for O'Rourke might be enough to help the down ballot. This is the last year Texas will have a straight ticket ballot option where voters can choose to vote with one party up and down the ticket. If interest in O'Rourke can get Republican-leaning voters to rethink the top of the ballot, it could help Democrats all the way down. O'Rourke might cause some Republicans to cast a straight ballot to not just do that from the start and go down the ballot and go candidate by candidate, Jones said, noting that Democrats are much more likely to go the straight ticket ballot route. Texas is a non-voting state. In 2010, only about a third of eligible Texas voters decided the governor's race, and less than 30% voted in the 2014 midterm cycle's general election. As Texas Tribune CEO Evan Smith told Vox's Dylan Scott after the Texas primary in 2018, which had pretty normal turnout, Democrats like to say that Texas is not a red state, it's a non-voting state. Fine, but the fact that it's a non-voting state means that it's a red state. Both these candidates are running mobilization campaigns, not persuasion campaigns, Hansen said, explaining that he doesn't see Cruz trying to convince Democrats to vote for him over O'Rourke. But as the Texas Tribune's Alexa Ura and Ryan Murphy point out, Texas's turnout is also deeply tied to demographics. This part right here was specifically highlighted, and it is awesome. Hopes for a swell in voter turnout often hinges on the state's burgeoning Hispanic population, but a breakdown of the population by age shows a third of Texas Hispanics aren't even of voting age. In fact, those under 18 make up the state's largest Hispanic age group. Meanwhile, those aged 45 to 64 make up the biggest age group of white Texans. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Wow. The biggest age group of white Texans. Woo. Those between the age of 45 and 64. Oh yeah. Wow. Dr. King was killed 50 years ago. So let's say those between the age of 50 and 64. Let's take the ones that are 64. They were 14 years old. They were teenagers when Dr. King was killed. They know what it is. They know what white privilege is, white supremacy is. They know what it means to keep white above and everything else starting with black below. You know what I mean? So yeah. And they make up the biggest age group of white Texans? Oh yeah. I'm sorry, that facts and those numbers just fucked my head up real quick, you know what I mean? Let me start back at this highlighted part. Hopes for a swell in voter turnout often hinge on the state's burgeoning Hispanic population, but a breakdown of the population by age shows a third of Texas Hispanics aren't even of voting age. In fact, those under 18 make up the state's largest Hispanic age group. Imagine if their largest Hispanic age group that's under the age of 18. So, in about 3 or 4 years, most of those are going to be over the age of 18 and moving forward. And they can even make sure that the law is changed where the voting age in Texas is 16. Ah, power to vote, like Michelle was talking about. But I digress. But a breakdown of the population by age shows a third of Texas Hispanics aren't even of voting age. In fact, those under 18 make up the state's largest Hispanic age group. Meanwhile, those aged 45 to 64 make up the biggest age group of white Texans. To be clear, Hispanic adults participate in elections at lower rates than their white and black counterparts overall, which makes them an easy target for voter mobilization efforts. But when it comes to convincing Hispanic voters to play a bigger role in elections, it doesn't help that they're already starting from behind. And Latino voters aren't an uniform. And Latino voters aren't a uniform voting bloc either. In 2014, 40% voted for the state's Republican governor, who's on the ballot again this year. So far, Republicans have been able to rest easy on this reality. It's possible Texas is slightly less red than we thought it was. Austin-based Republican strategist Matt Makawiak told Vox. Does that mean Texas is a battleground state? We're light years away. That said, Republicans control so much of the state that Democrats have a lot to gain. Republicans, on the other hand, have a lot to lose. Yo, it's so funny, yo, how they talk about Texas and all that. After Obama won in 2008, right? And it was so much talk about how the demographic map of voting in America was about to change, and they ain't never lie about that, yo. Like it was supposed to. I was so advocating. I was so running my mouth talking about how there wouldn't be a Republican president for the next 2-3 presidencies at least, because the United States was turning purple instead of it being red and blue. Like, so yeah, but y'all know what I mean though. Okay, back to Queens, New York business. Updated September 27, 2018 at 3:41 p.m. Updated 3 hours ago. Bed Bath & Beyond, the latest casualty of Trump's trade war. The New Jersey-based retailer said rising tariffs for Chinese imports are hurting business. Bed Bath & Beyond's stock price sank by more than 20% today after it became the latest company to say tariffs on Chinese imports were hurting business. Chief Executive Stephen Tamades said on a conference call that his company is trying its best to blunt the impact of the Trump administration's economic policies by finding suppliers elsewhere. But such moves will take time. It's a little bit of a black hole, he said. We're working it very aggressively and we'll have to see. Bed Bath did not quantify the toll taken by the tariffs. Last week, the White House escalated its trade war with China by saying it would impose tariffs on $200 billion worth of goods on top of the $50 billion already instituted earlier this year, like 2 months ago. The news was the latest in a series of blows for the Union, New Jersey-based retailer, which has struggled to adapt to the age of Amazon. Heading into today, its stock price had lost half its value since spring 2017 and now is at its lowest point since 2000. Bed Bath reported that same-store sales fell for the sixth consecutive quarters. Wow, a quarter. Wow. And earnings fell short of Wall Street targets. The retailer also lowered its financial guidance for the year and said earnings probably wouldn't grow again until 2020. Hoboken-based Newell Rubbermaid, which makes crock pots and Sharpie pens, warned in August last month that Chinese tariffs could cost it $1 million in revenue. Nationally, Alcoa, Caterpillar, General Motors, Harley-Davidson, and Whirlpool also have said that trade wars have affected business. He's making America great again. Huh? Hey man, let's enjoy the economic benefits of the Obama administration for the next 3 or 4 more months while it lasts. Yeah, I think that last recession that happened because of Wall Street, stock market, housing bubble, and bad loans, yeah, I think that was bad. This one is about to make us feel the grips that Russians have been feeling for decades under the thumbs of a little man god dictator. You dick. Sorry, Vlad. I had to go there for a second, you know what I mean? But real talk though, shit gonna get crazy, yo. But guess what though, Black America? If you black in America, yeah, that shit ain't nothing new. It's just white folks that can't handle it. Now we be alright. We just gotta change our strategy towards progress. And I think 2 simple acts, reading and voting. They can't tell you can't read no book no more. Those days are gone, you know what I mean? But yeah. Whew. Awesome sauce. Speaking of trade wars, right? I got a couple of other things that I wanna. Speaking of trade wars, right? This was from September 20th, 7 days ago, 2018 at 4:42 p.m. from Forbes.com. It says why Trump's stock market cheering is dangerous by Jesse Colombo, contributor to the market sections. The S&P 500 hit another all-time high today, and President Donald Trump tweeted in his usual fashion. See, now that's why I said earlier that tweet that I just read not too long ago, that wasn't his words. Somebody wrote that and copied and pasted it to him, or he handed his phone to them and they typed it out, and he probably didn't even look at it. He probably just trusted them. He like, yeah, y'all do y'all thing right now, so I do my thing later. When he really gonna go off, he gonna go like, this motherfucker, but sorry. The S&P 500 hit another all-time high today. This was last Friday, last Thursday. The S&P 500 hit another all-time high today, and President Donald Trump tweeted in his usual fashion, S&P 500 hits all-time high. Congratulations, USA. That was the end of the tweet. Okay. And this is Jesse Colombo continuing on. Though I am a conservative myself, dump trucks stock market cheerleading angers me because he's fanning the flames of a dangerous asset bubble. See my recent report on Forbes, which is extremely irresponsible. I believe that the current stock market bubble will cause severe damage to the economy and our society when it ultimately pops. Imagine if George W. Bush constantly touted how surging U.S. housing prices were making Americans rich in the mid-2000s. We all know how that ended. Well, that's what Dumb Truck is doing with his stock market cheerleading. History will not look kindly upon it. And then they're showing here's the president's suite. He had the all caps. The only thing that wasn't all caps was the congratulations part. He had the S&P, the 500 obviously, hits all caps, all time with the hyphen in the middle all caps, high all caps. I swear yo, he only ain't got to type this out no more. Those are like autocomplete now. It's on his phone. Congratulations, then USA with the exclamation point all caps. That happened at 9:34 a.m. of that morning. Man, he had just woke up, huh? Did Melanie give you some that night? Oh shit. Oh yeah, now she must have. She got on that little wiggly shit and rolled, huh? She couldn't even write right. It's like that, hey, let me stop, yo. I'ma leave Trump alone. He too thin-skinned. Yo, I had this manager, supervisor, Lamont. What's up, Lamont? Back in like 2003, 2004, I was working at Boston Market. I don't know what it was. I got into one of my coworkers. I found out he was getting paid more than I was, and I was the one that put him on, that brought him on the job and all that. And I made a stunk about it. I ended up getting a little bit of a raise, maybe like 10 cents or some shit. But Lamont, he looked at me. He said, "Man, you guys know how to get under people's skin, don't you? You gonna fuck around and like get under the wrong person's skin." That's what I'm saying. I'm trying my best not because the more I go on doing this, the more I realize that I could literally get under this fucking skin and have him push a button somewhere that's gonna obliterate half of Africa off the face of the world, you know what I mean? He's a dumbass. I get it. I don't want to keep pushing his buttons. Lend the voice of thoughts. Y'all remember that part? Okay. The S&P 500 hit an all-time high. That's not Trump Street this time. This is Jesse's writing now. The S&P 500 hit an all-time high at the time of this writing of $2,933.25. To make matters worse, Dumb Trunk knew that we were in a dangerous stock market bubble back in 2016 before he became president. He even called it a big fat ugly bubble. I remember when he called it that. I remember that. That was during the debate. I remember that. Now the S&P 500 is 35% higher and even more overvalued. But Trump is acting as if it's an organic, sustainable boom rather than the debt-driven bubble that it really is. This is disingenuous behavior, plain and simple. The S&P 500 has surged over 300% since March 2009 due to the Federal Reserve's pro-asset inflation policies. That's why you should have extended Janet Yellen's tenure, but you know, she wasn't gonna stay anyway. She wasn't gonna stay. She not feel on that. Back to Jesse though. According to the cyclically adjusted price to earnings ratio, or CAPE, C-A-P-E, a smooth price to earnings ratio, the U.S. stock market is even more overvalued than it was at major historic peaks, including 1929. Trying to tell y'all, this motherfucker is putting us into some shit. Everybody that knows me for the last 3 years knows I've been telling them Trump is sending the world shit the fuck to hell in the breadbasket, yo. This dumbass is... I'm sorry, guys. I couldn't help it. Oh, football ain't come on yet? I know I'm advocating for the African American NFL players to boycott the season just to send a shock and a message to the system. So on a consistent level. But I do love the NFL though, man. You can't go wrong with football, yo. Football is like that, you know what I mean? Can't go wrong with it. Even though it is the Negro fleecing league. Back to Dumb Trunk's apocalyptic fuck-ups. According to the U.S. stock market capitalization to GDP ratio also known as a Warren Buffett's favorite indicator. The market is more overpriced and inflated than it was during even the dot-com bubble. The S&P 500's rise has coincided with and is driven by total debt and leverage in the US economy, as this chart made by boss Lance Roberts shows. I wish I could show y'all the charts and all that, but like I told y'all today, I told y'all one website who wrote it. You can go read it yourself and look at the charts, you know what I mean? That's why math was important in school. They told you you were going to need math for the rest of your life. You hear me, kids? Learn your math. Don't play with that math. President Donald Trump's stock market bubble cheerleading means that he now has ownership of it. Huh? You wish. He ain't got no choice, but yeah, you wish. His dumb ass ain't owning up to shit. Dumb Trump's stock market bubble cheerleading means that he now has ownership of it, which is a double-edged sword. It makes him look great as the bubble inflames, but it could easily destroy his political career and legacy when it inevitably busts. Alright, I gotta tell y'all something. He doesn't care about that, because his legacy is already cemented. He was the white man who dismantled the legacy of America's first black president. That was the ultimate legacy that he wanted. He's accomplished that. You know what I mean? We need a sustained, consistent blue wave to return back to those Obama-era policies, because they were actually sound, excellent, sustainable, progressing policies. I'm not saying progressive in the ideological sense. I'm saying projective in the adjectival sense, if that's even a word, adjectival. I'm using progressive in the adjective, not in the ideological sense. You know what I mean? Barack Obama's policies were as such. Yes. Progress, change, yes we can. He really stuck to his promises. He did. You know, people just, you know, Fox News fucked that up from real bad. President Donald Trump's stock market bubble cheerleading means that he now has ownership of it, which is a double-edged sword. It makes him look great as the bubble inflates, but it could easily destroy his political career and legacy when it inevitably busts. Considering this information, it makes complete sense why he complained about the Fed raising interest rates in July. Higher rates threaten to bust the bubble. The wise path would have been to disavow the bubble altogether or try to talk it down in an attempt to prevent it from growing even larger and more dangerous. We at Clarity Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm, specialize in preserving and growing investor wealth in risky times like this. If you're concerned about your financial future, please click here to contact me. Jesse Colombo is an economic analyst, registered investment advisor, and Forbes contributor who warns about bubbles and future financial crises. Jesse works for that's it. That's what I'm gonna stop. That's all that was. Trying to tell y'all, man. This man was not good for America, man. This man was not good for nobody. This man was not good for nobody. Hey, CNN had this awesome ass piece, right? That was updated on September the 3rd of 2008 on CNN.com. Like, it's like it was on the CNN style in Marketplace Africa. And it says, skyscrapers, trains, and roads. How Addis Ababa, that's the capital of Ethiopia, whoever, if you didn't know that, Addis Ababa, yeah. How Addis Ababa came to look like a Chinese city. Written by Jenny Marsh, CNN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. When Wang Yujun put Ethiopia's most expensive real estate project on the market, He experienced a strange phenomenon. People prefer the lowest floor over those with panoramic city views. Power cuts mean elevators in this city often don't work, explains Wang, the site manager. So the bottom floor flats became the most valuable. You won't see this pricing in any Chinese city. Replicating China's urban model in Africa has its challenges, but with limited developable space in Addis Ababa, the capital is surrounded by protected farmland. Wang believes high-rise living, such as Shesa Real Estate's $60 million Poly Lotus development, is inevitable. Theodros. Okay, why you not? It's not letting me read the whole article. Come on, CNN, don't do it like this. Oh, nah, man. Come on, CNN Marketplace Africa, don't do me like this. It was an awesome ass article too. Ah. Well, if anybody who can afford to pay for CNN's news services, you can go finish reading it. It was an awesome ass article. The first time I read it, yeah, it was like that, but I can't read it again more than once unless you pay for it. Yeah, I know what I mean by that, you know. Let's see here. What else I got here for you? What else I got here for you? What else I got here for you? They say it's going to take like 200 years to get equal gender rights in the workplace. It should take less. Salesforce just proved that. CNN just did an excellent 60 minute on CBS just did an excellent piece about maybe 2.5, 3 months ago on Salesforce and how the CEO realized that he had his female employees were getting paid 80 cents on the dollar compared to his male employees. So they found out how much it was gonna cost him to fix all that. I think it was like $6 million total, $3 million a year. Like, yeah, that's why it cost him $3 million to even out the gender pay. You know, awesome. All right, this was from Axios. Axios, this is from Lazaro Gamio, Gamio, on September the 8th. It says 11 million US workers in the trade war's crosshairs. With an escalation in dump trucks trade war possible as early as Thursday, retaliatory tariffs threaten US companies employing some 11 million workers, according to an Axios analysis. Why it matters? Industries affected by the brinksmanship are mostly concentrated in the rural, deeply already struggling parts of the country, with political consequences for Trump and Republicans in 2018 and beyond. Hey, that's why Trump just gave like $12 billion to like farmers and shit like that who have been affected by his trade war that he started. You know what I mean? He started a trade war that's affecting his voters in deep Republican states. You remember how the voting map had went blue and red all up and down the middle? Yeah, like straight up. They just approved like $12 billion to like help out as like a stimulus relief bill for farmers losing out because of his trade war with China and Canada and Mexico and all of them and Europe. It's not just with China now. China is the bigger piece of the pie, but he fucking shit up with everybody, man. This fool right here, man. He acting like he doesn't have a pot to piss in a window to throw it out of. Just burning all America's bridges, y'all. Stupid as fuck. Hell stupid out here. Back to Axios' article on September 8th by Lazaro Gamio. Why it matters. Industries affected by the brinksmanship were mostly concentrated in rural, deeply red, already struggling parts of the country, with political consequences for Trump and Republicans in 2018 and beyond. There's a chart, there's a map that shows the concentration, which is a great map. I wish I could highlight it and break it down, but check it out. I told you who wrote it and when and which website. Axios, AXIOS.com. Explanation of the map. The map tracks the geographical impact of both current and threatened retaliation. The darker a county, the higher the concentration of affected industries is, driving the news. On Thursday, a public comment period ends on Trump's threat to quadruple tariffs on China, slapping them on $200 billion in Chinese goods, up from $50 billion enforced today. If Trump proceeds this week or later, as experts expect him to, China has said it will retaliate with tariffs of $60 billion in U.S. exports. That's on top of 25% and 10% tariffs enacted, respectively, on steel and aluminum imports from Canada, China, Mexico, and the European Union, and by those countries against the U.S. Employment in rural and low population counties can be exceptionally vulnerable to gyrations in the global economy, says Mark Muro, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute. In a small county, a single meatpacking establishment can provide hundreds of jobs and make up a large share of that county's total employment, he told Axios. A prior report by Muro and others at the Brookings inspired this analysis. Against these impacts, the dump truck administration has provided a $4.7 billion bailout to soybean farmers. See, they said 4.7. I think that's just a start, but it's like $12 billion altogether. I'm sorry. I just read so much shit that that number was just stuck in my head. Which is the same amount, which is like, yo, that's about where that money came from. The $12 billion that the Consumer Protection Financial Bureau had returned to consumers since its inception in like 2009, 2010 or some shit. Since then, that's the money he probably giving back to these farmers. I digress. I'll stay on topic. Against these impacts, the Trump administration has provided a $4.7 billion bailout to soybean farmers, hit with retaliatory tariffs by China, their biggest customer. Republicans have criticized the compensation. Methodology. We calculated the concentration of industries in each county compared with the national average. To get there, we got a list of goods facing tariffs from Canada, Mexico, China, and the European Union. The data is from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the Bureau of Labor Statistics quarterly census of employment wages. Ah, man. This fucking guy. Gotta love him for it, man. Gotta love his racist ass for it. Gotta love his racist dumbass for that shit. I ain't mad at him. Ain't got nothing but love for it. Do your racist thing, dude. Do your racist thing, Trump. Said we were once two men living in the same world. Ooh, yeah, let me go to that real quick. Ooh, I just saw something that I couldn't get it. It's from the Washington Post. It was from the Washington Post. I couldn't read it. Okay, let's see here. Oh yeah. So 100 years before I was born, right? Before LeBron was born, I was born in '84. LeBron was born in '84. You know what I mean? I say that to make the connection to say that. You know what I mean? It's a numbers thing. I'm just saying. This is from Wikipedia. Only you can go. Is this page called Scramble for Africa? The Scramble for Africa was the occupation, division, and colonization of African territory by European powers during the period of new imperialism between 1881 and 1914. There's this thing I say whenever people meet me and they hear my accent, they think I tell them I'm from Sierra Leone and they hear the name and they think it's French speaking. And I always say, I'm like, no, we were supposedly colonized by the British. You know what I mean? So that's probably one of the reasons why I thought about doing this. Supposedly colonized by the British. So like European powers in that period of new imperialism feeling like the people living in that continent of Africa did not know what they were doing with their own land, with their own existence. So they had to take over them and colonize them and show them how to be better. You know what I mean? I don't know, you know. It's the same mentality that these crackers got going on. But the Scramble for Africa was the occupation, division, and colonization of African territory by European powers during the period of new imperialism between 1881 and 1914, right before World War I started. It is also called the Partition of Africa and by some the Conquest of Africa. In 1870, only 10% of Africa was under formal European control. By 1914, it had increased to almost 90% of the continent, with only Ethiopia, Abyssinia, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and Liberia still being independent. Liberia wasn't truly independent. We gotta clear that, because Liberia is named Liberia because it derives from the Latin liberty, because it was the place in Africa where the Freedmen's Society was sending free slaves from America. That's why the capital Monrovia is named so after President James Monroe of the United States of America. He was president when that all went down, when they started sending African slaves to Liberia and Sierra Leone, where I'm from, you know what I mean, where I was born and raised. So Liberia was now really independent. It was still under some kind of feudal colonial control by certain slave trading powers that be in those days, in the 1800s. I digress though, I just had to get into our historical mode real quick. In 1870, only 10% of Africa was under formal European control. By 1914, it had increased to almost 90% of the continent. So 1870, 80, 90, then 1900, 1910. So in 44 years, it went from 10% to 90%, huh? Man, they were working fast as shit. Whew. By 1914, it had increased to almost 90% of the continent, with only Ethiopia, Abyssinia, and Liberia still being independent. There were multiple motivations, including the quest for national prestige, tensions between pairs of European powers, religious missionary zeal, and internal African native politics. The Berlin Conference of 1884